Imagine that you're taking a stroll and you decided to go through the library on your campus and you're seeing these students, they're working together, they're studying together, they look happy, and you go, this is great. This is what I envision life to be, where students are studying together and helping each other. But wait, let's get a little bit closer. And imagine that this is really what you are hearing. Mark, Teresa, you know we all agreed to change the way we were going to write the report. Teresa, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing what we agreed to. Mark said, I don't see how you can say that. I think you're just trying to avoid doing it. Teresa says, I thought it was a lousy idea then, and I still think it is. But I'm still doing what we decided to do. And you're so unhappy, and you're walking away, and you're going, this has got to be a better way to prevent this kind of happenings among the students. So that leads us to our topic for today, which is effective team projects and student teams. What, how, and why. And there's going to be 2 parts, and so this is part A. I'm Cheelan Bo-Linn from the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I'm looking forward to talking about this very important skill that our students need to acquire while they're with you. So, as good practice, we should always have learning outcomes or goals that you should be able to do at the end of this 2-part topic. After this session, you'll be able to recognize group versus team characteristics and dynamics. You'll be able to identify how to effectively use teamwork in a course. And I just want to say, over here we use course, but I understand that you use the word module. So please excuse if I slip into using the word course when I'm really referring to what you have as a module. And I'm talking about this works both in online and face-to-face. You'll be able to teach your students how to be effective team members. And really, this is quite important for you to be able to create and assess team projects and processes. So let's begin. What are the types of groups usually used in courses over here, modules over there? Well, they could be study groups. Study groups means I go and find somebody because this might be a difficult course, and I thought it would be great for us to study together and help each other and answer each other's questions. Another kind of grouping is what we call informal learning groups. And these are things that you might do during the duration in your class, which you might say, okay, here's a question, or here's an assignment. Why don't you get together with some other people that are nearby and let's talk about this. We have another third kind of grouping, and it's what are called the formal learning groups. And at this point, let's introduce a new vocabulary. And we're not going to use the groups anymore in sort of formal learning groups, which is quite long. Let's use the word team. Now, there's a specific reason why we're using the word team instead of formal learning groups, specifically that word groups. Let's take a minute, think about that. What does it mean when I say team? Some words that come up means it's long. It's longer period, maybe 15, 16 weeks, as opposed to getting together for 15 minutes in the class. It probably means that they're going to be working on more difficult problems. It also means, as that saying goes, one for all and all for one, that instead that we're working very hard, closely together for a similar goal. So you can see right away that we're making a distinction between groups and team. Now, we also need to think very carefully about why we want to use teams in our modules. And so why have it? Be prepared. Think about that. If you have a piece of paper, write down some thoughts about why you want to have student teams in your class. And I'll wait a couple of seconds for you to jot down some. Here's some of my ideas, so it'll probably be the same as yours. Well, The world is complex, and I like to have them be working on more complex problems. Also, it's an opportunity to work on both technical and professional skills. When we talk about professional skills, we're talking about leadership skills, being able to negotiate, being able to present. Students will be able will be exposed to different opinions, strategies, perceptions. That's always good because they need to be able to know that there's more than one way. And also we find out that if students are talking to each other and they have to explain, they actually will learn the content more deeply. And hopefully it will be more enjoyable in order to work with their peers. We have to be honest though. There's always the flip side. And what's the flip side? Let's go ahead and face the issues that come up. And this is maybe why some of those students are going, this is why I don't want to work in teams. There's going to be different opinions. While we said this is a positive, it could be something that detracts them. It's hard. It's hard to manage one's own time, and now you have to negotiate with other people who have different schedules. There's very strong personalities that are working together. And then there are loaders and freeloaders and slackers. Now, what does those terms mean? Those are the people that you're saying aren't doing their fair share. And you're going, you're not working hard enough. You're not contributing enough. Those are what we're calling there. So, and they come in with different expectations of what it means to be successful. So hopefully that you will be able to address those however opinions that may exist when you work team projects. So one thing I'm going to really suggest is just as important it is to teach the content in your class as that you devote a session in your class to really train your students how to be good team members, because this skill is important as any content that you will be teaching in your module. Because if you ask the students why you want to have team projects, instead of what you're going to see over here, all of these wonderful outcomes, they're going to think, oh, instead of 30 individual assignments, I'm going to only grade 6. And this is really not the outcome that you would want your students to think about why you're instituting team projects in your class. So let's begin with a definition of what a team is. This is a great book. There's The Wisdom of Teams by Katzenbach and Smith. And what they did is that they went and studied these high-performance corporations that use teams very well. And by studying them, they found that they could get a definition of what a team is. And we're going to use this definition to guide our session. A team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, performance skills, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. So there are 4 aspects, and we're going to address each one of these in this session about teams and team projects. So let's begin. First part, a small number of people. What do you think a small number of people is? Well, it's more than 2 because two is a pair. What are the numbers you might think? 5, 8, 10? Well, actually, what we found out, there's an optimal number, and it's usually about 3 to 5 students. So we find out that if we have a membership around 3 to 5 people, that makes a more successful team. But wait, we have a soccer team in our USA, and I know that Sierra Leone also has a soccer team, and I'm using the word team, and I'm not using group. But if we look at it, this is back to the USA women team. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 11 people, and I just said there's 3 to 5 students. So how's that be? And actually, it's more than 11 because we found out that there might be 7 to 8 people that are sitting on the bench coming in as subs. So if you find that you're using a very, very complex project, like maybe from an industry or a business that needs more people, what you do, instead of starting them out with a large team like this, the USA soccer team, what you should do is break them up into smaller groups. And what you do is get them as strong as possible. Like if they're midfielders, defenders, whatever they are, and get them as strong as possible, then put them together where they become a strong, larger number team on there. So that is the suggestion. Start with 3 to 5 small groupings, teams, put them together to create larger ones. Part 2, complementary skills. Notice that I did not say similar skills, complementary. So what you need to do is think very carefully about how you're going to put the teams together. So what are some ways? Think about your project. What is it that it needs, that we need to have attitudes and skills so that each of the teams will be as successful as possible? Here are some ways for you to think about this. Maybe it's important that you have somebody on the teams who have good writing skills. Maybe you have somebody who can work on an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe somebody that has great research skills. When you think about skills like this, those are called technical skills. There's also another thing that you should consider. We can't have all of these teams have people that just talk all the time. You need to have good listeners in there. You also need to have people that are good supportive people who say, well, wait a minute, can you think about this? So-and-so has not spoken yet. And another aspect that you might want to think about is a negotiator. If there's a conflict, they can say, can we think about this a moment? And when we think about those kind of skills, we think about interpersonal skills. So how do I find out if I think that I need these kind of technical skills and interpersonal skills? What are some ways that I can find out? Well, you can have a survey. You can ask them to put them together that way in which you ensure that every team is assembled the same. So some ways to determine the team membership, what I just said, is a calculated assignment, which means that you make sure that every team is composed the same with people who can write, can do Excel spreadsheets, can do research, who are good listeners, who are good negotiators. Another way, which is quite simple, is just do a random assignment. You can do a random number and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and count them off like that and put them into teams. Another way is a combination of instructor and student choice. Sometimes students just don't want to be told who to work with. And so what you can say is that you go and find a colleague, a peer, that you would like to work with. But remember that this peer has to have a complementary skill, not the same, but someone who would be can fill in the gaps of the skills and attitudes that you don't have. Then you, the instructor, will get these pairs and put the pairs together to form a team of 4 to 5 people. And this way, it's very good because the students have a choice, and then you can make sure at the end that the teams were composed equally. This is a very interesting way of putting teams together, which is called apply and interview. Now, maybe you're working with students who are in their 4th, 5th year and they're ready to go out into the world. What do they need to do? They need to write a letter of application. They need to sell themselves. They need to say, these are the skills that I have. Well, one way to do this, which is in this journal, is that you can have all of your students write a letter of application and have a resume out. And what you will do is, for instance, if you're going to have 6 teams, pick 6 leaders, and they would be the leaders or facilitators of these 6 teams. You give them the remaining letters of applications and resumes and say, compose your own team. But remember, maximize the diversity of the team so you have a fully well-equipped team. And what they do is that it mimics what's going to happen in the real world in there. And that's called apply and interview. Now, I'm going to give you an example from a course that is on our campus. It's from Food Science and Human Nutrition 466, Food Product Development with Dawn Bone. And this is her class in there. She is the one way over here, and this is her large class. And this is the way she put her teams together. She decided to do it a calculated way, and so she had them fill out a piece of paper with the questions that she thinks they were most important, including the schedule and including the skills and the attitudes that they think that they would like to say that is value added to the team they're going to be in. She also had them do a survey, it's called Real Colors, in which they can tap into their expectations, their working styles, their personalities. And also, because she had them working together in the class, she could walk around and to see how the individuals are working. So based on that, she was able to put a team together. So now we're going, and we can see that we've addressed a small number of people, 3 to 5 students, and complementary skills. And that's not similar skills, because that's what we mean is that we like to have each team to be as diverse as possible. And that brings us to the end of our topic on effective teams, Part A. I'll see you in Part B in a bit.